The Indianapolis Colts must fire Chris Ballard this offseason, and maybe Shane Steichen as well. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Colts podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network around. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd over at horseshoehuddle.com, and I'm joined, as always, I guess we haven't been able to say that as much recently, Jake, but I'm joined again by Jake Arthur, the boots on the ground for Round Table Sports. We are finally back in the saddle. Jake is settled in with his new everything at home, and I am here as always, I guess, for you guys. But we are here answering your guys' Q&A. So our big triumphant return episode with both of us back on the show is just answering your guys' questions. You guys gave Jake hundreds and hundreds of questions from firing both of Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen to draft overhaul to roster overhaul stuff. You guys are ready for the offseason. We're ready for the offseason. And that's what a lot of today's conversation is going to be about. So, Jake, I think we have to start it off hot here with the first question being, will Chris Ballard and or Shane Steichen be fired? Now, we're not the most plugged in people here. We're not insiders on here. We're reactionists, I guess, more so, and just, podcasters. But do we have any inkling? Do we have any vibe that this could finally be it? Or does Chris Ballard get year 10 at the helm with the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, I've got two major factors here that I'm kind of weighing. So the first one is obviously there's a lot of context that goes into the second half collapse. A lot of it being stuff that's really out of the Colts' control. Like, so many of their most important players were injured. And if you look at it, if Daniel Jones stays healthy, if Buckner stays healthy, Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner, if all those guys are healthy, does it really look like this? And so that's part of it. But at the same time, I think we're all done with excuses, because I think we said this on the squad show the other day. You could go back each year of the last dozen or so years that they haven't made the playoffs for the most part and say, this is why. At a certain point, it's move on and just try and start anew. But then Jordan Rodriguez had a piece come out on The Athletic today, a little profile on Carly Ursay-Gordon. And there was one quote that really stood out to me. And it was Carly saying, something a lot, paraphrasing, like, I may be a little weird, but I really like change. And sometimes I think change is very necessary. Something along those lines. I clipped it and I have to go look at it again. But it was something about embracing change and almost liking it. And I was like, well, I mean, they've been really, really steady for about 10 years here and gotten no results. So surely someone who embraces change might be willing to shake things up a little bit. So, gun to my head, I really find it hard to believe that they're going to full on run it back with everything,
Look, Carly could surprise me. I don't think they're going to make any big changes this offseason. One of the big things she said in her preseason presser when asked, like, hey, is this a win or else type of season for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen? And she did put the thing on there like, well, what if we start hot and there's, injuries and that's what derails the season? There has to be context to these things. And ultimately, I agree. There has to be context to these things. You're not firing Chris Ballard because of 2025. If anything, 2025 is one of the few reasons why you wouldn't fire him, because this is not a typical season where you would fire a general manager because of what happened this year. But we have 8 other seasons to look at with this general manager. And even with this head coach, we have 2 other seasons to look at, which maybe is a better case for keeping Shane Steichen. But ultimately, what more do you have to see from Chris Ballard at this point? It's been the same result over and over again for 9 years. We ranted about it too much on this show recently, and we're going to the entire offseason. But I don't know. I don't see the change happening. A commenter here says that Chris Ballard's contract ends after next season. That seems to be like the easy out for almost all the contracts, including his. So we'll see. I hope she surprises me and makes the move that she needs to make, because ultimately I'm of the opinion that we just need a different guy running the show here. I'm still whatever on Shane Steichen. Like, if you bring him back, you fire him, whatever. I can be talked into it either way, depending on the day. But when it comes to Chris Ballard, I think ultimately they need to make this move. But I don't think it's going to happen. I would say it's like 65% chance he's back, 35% chance he's not is probably where I'd lean as of right now. But look, it's a new ownership, completely new owner. We'll see the way that she goes. We really don't have anything to base this off of right now when it comes to her.
Yeah, and another thing I'm just thinking of that I've been thinking of when this topic comes up is if they don't make any moves, if everyone stands pat, now you do have to you can't just go off of what the fans want all the time, but like how do you sell optimism to the fans? Because Chris Ballard even said himself how 2023 ended with the botched 4th and 1, all that. He thought all those guys would be just as pissed off as he was and they wanted to run it back in 2024 and do all this awesome stuff, and it backfired, which led to him making great changes in the offseason. You're basically doing that again. You're saying, all these injuries and stuff that we had, it's all going to be better, even though Buckner's 31 coming off a neck injury. Mooney Ward, we got to question his future totally now after 3 big concussions in a year, being on IR twice. Suddenly, some of these big things you're hanging your hat on are very uncertain. Daniel Jones, we're pretty confident they're going to bring him back and he'll be the primary starter next year, but he's coming off an Achilles. We've seen what that looks like with Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins, for examples, in their first years back. So what are you selling? And of course, no first-round pick, probably not a big spending spree in free agency either because that money is already allocated in certain spots. So, like, what are you generating excitement and change about? There's nothing. I don't think. Like, I think it would be most bland, disappointing offseason if you go through and do nothing,
Yeah, no, I agree. And this kind of leads to our next question with David and just continuing the conversation here. Chris Ballard or Shane Steichen, which one do you hang the failure on more if you had to terminate and start over? And I think if all things were equal, let's say if all things were equal, they both had the same length on their term. Like they both started here in 2023, which isn't the case, but let's just say that were the case for the sake of this. I still would probably blame the general manager more than the head coach. And I'm not saying Shane Steichen's completely blameless in all this, but he's been given to work with, a quarterback who just hasn't worked out, and that's partly on him for sure. But the quarterback hasn't stayed healthy either. He's had Gardner Minshew, he's had Joe Flacco, and then Daniel Jones, who like a quarterback that nobody else wanted outside of Minnesota and Indy this offseason. And he's turned in 500 plus, seasons around 500 or more. And that's not even talking about the issues at linebacker, the lack of pass rush, the lack of anything in the pass rush the last couple of years. I think Shane Steichen is a fine coach. I think there are flaws, there are warts, and there are ways that he could be a lot better. And if you make the move from him, I could live with it. Like, don't get me wrong. But I think Chris Ballard's GMing the last couple of years has left a lot to be desired, from misses in free agency to all the rants that me and Ben Boris yesterday were talking about with the drafting. Like only 58% of his players in the Shane Steichen era have logged more than 10 games. Of 58% of his players that he's drafted, 29 players, only 58% have logged more than 10 games played in the NFL at this point. Part of that's injury, but that's part of drafting. It's part of your resume as a general manager. I think it's more on the GM than the head coach at this point, even if they both share some blame for all this, for sure. I think it's just more on the general manager, and I think that's where a lot of my fault lies with the recent failures of this team.
Yeah, big picture overall, that since 2023 that you're going with, I would say Ballard for sure, because it took all this time and surviving by the skin of his teeth last year to finally make some big monumental moves. This year specifically, I would say Shane, just because, again, I thought Chris has had an excellent approach in 2025 to build it. Like, I don't know what else he could have done this year to load up this roster and make them competitive and ready to fight. And to an extent, you look at all the injuries they've had, how they're not going to finish 4-13 or whatever. It's kind of a testament to the roster that Ballard has fortified. But you look at starting 8-2, and now you're going to finish at that nifty little 500 mark again this season. How is that not on the coach? And I think a theme since 2023 is, each season, how many games have they given away that they've been in control of in the second half that they have not been able to hold on to? Like they've really narrowly missed the playoffs about every year. And if you give them a 2-3 game difference, you probably make the playoffs in 1 or 2 of those seasons, certainly 2023. So late game coaching and adjustments and things like that. And I don't know if there's like maybe a disconnect with, how things are communicated with and from players too. Like, I think that's kind of been an issue as well.
Yeah.
I think short term this year, I would definitely say Shane, and he's got his fingerprints on some of those other things. Again, the late game collapses are not new to this year, but overall, definitely Chris, because it took him until now to finally start building a roster that people have been screaming about.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, again, like to make it fair, we put them at the same tenure, right? At 3 years for this exercise. Yeah. It's not 3 years for each. It's 9 years versus right. 3 years. One of them's had every player on this roster has been brought in by Ballard. Obviously, that's true of every general manager, but like, it's not like he inherited anybody from the previous GM at this point. Every single player on this roster is his at this point. So it's him, man. Like, at the end of the day, it's him. But coming up, we're going to continue this conversation, talking more about Ballard and Steichen, and we'll talk a little bit about the quarterback situation of the future for the Colts. Because, again, any other injury, I think it's easy to say you bring back Daniel Jones. Achilles injury, it makes it a little bit more of a conversation, I think, and we'll talk about that more in segment 2.
Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so that you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for 1 monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every week. Plus, knowing that you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnfl and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months free of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnfl. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnfl. All right, welcome back, everydayers, and thank you for making Locked On Colts your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, this is exciting stuff. If you haven't already dove into it, go check out our new Everydayers Club. You can catch our audio ad-free, and you could get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of Locked On Colts. Go to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join or even gift a subscription. You can do that as well. All right, let's get past the Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen of it real quick, because the next biggest topic of conversation is the ever-evolving quarterback situation, Zach. So as we expected, and Shane Steichen will announce this tomorrow, but Riley Leonard is going to start the season finale on Sunday in Houston. Phillip Rivers, there's no reason to have him anymore. He was brought in to get them to the playoffs, and now they cannot make the playoffs. So Riley Leonard it is. The rookie 6th-round pick is going to get his chance against the #1 defense in football right now. So that's been another huge topic here. So Richard Horton asks, why would the Colts start Riley Leonard over Phillip Rivers? Rivers had a real chance to beat Roethlisberger's record. So that's not really in consideration. If it was something Phillip Rivers was dying to do, Shane Steichen might let him do it. But otherwise, you're just, Rivers came in explicitly to help them get to the playoffs. They can't. He's 44. Do you really want Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson turning him into a pretzel with nothing to gain from it? That is Riley Leonard's pretzel to become, I assume. So you at least get an early look at what this guy you drafted can do in a really tough situation.
Yeah, I think you said it all, where like, this isn't the Colts making a decision. This is Phillip Rivers making the decision. It's him stepping back and saying, like, I came in here to help you guys get the playoffs. Now that's officially completely out the window. I know it technically was on Sunday, but like, Riley Leonard would have been left to the dogs on Sunday without getting any reps with the first team going out there against Jacksonville. So this is one where it's like, stepping aside, Leonard gets all the first team reps this week, and he's able to go out there on Sunday and be the best possible version of himself. So I think if the choice were still up to Steichen, I either way, I don't think it would really matter like who was out there. If Phil said like, I want to give it one more go, Roethlisberger's record is mine, I think the Colts would say, sure, whatever, go out there and do it. But ultimately, because Philip Rivers has taken that step back, I think that's why it's going to be Leonard on Sunday. And that's more of a testament to Phil than it is to the Colts or anything like that.
Yeah. All right. So up next, friend of the show, Destin Adams asks, what is the absolute most amount of money you'd be okay with the Colts paying Daniel Jones this offseason? So at one point you would have thought 40 million was probably happening. You got the Achilles, which is definitely going to limit him no matter even the rosiest of glasses. It's going to limit him at some point in 2026. They're confident he'll be back like for the start of the regular season, but even if he is, he's not going to look like Michael Vick out there. Vanilla Vick, as is his nickname. So I think 40 million per year is out the door. It's probably still north of 30 though.
I see. I don't know. I just don't. Teams are so desperate with quarterbacks. You know, like that's just the nature of the business. So it really wouldn't shock me if he got anywhere from 20 million over 1 year and say like, go earn it. Or if a team was like, you know what, we saw enough. Who cares about the Achilles? We'll give you 2 to 3. Like, look at the Vikings season this year. And do you believe in JJ McCarthy? And if they really, really like Daniel Jones, giving him a 2 to 3 year contract at 40 million per year. Like, I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm just saying it certainly could happen. You guys know me though. I'm very scared of Achilles injuries. I think it's just, again, I spent the whole offseason complaining about Samson Ebukam coming back. I spent a whole offseason crying that Marlon Mack's career is over when his Achilles was torn. Like, I don't like messing with that injury. And it gives me so much pause, regardless of position, when it comes to coming back from that. So it's a tough, like, signing a free agent who's actively recovering from an Achilles injury to a big contract just scares the hell out of me. So I don't know what I would give him. I will say I hope he comes back from it very well. He was fun to watch this year. I thought he played some good football. I think the Houston game, his last full game before he got hurt, was one of his better games of the season. There were some incompletions, but against the best defense in football, I thought he played pretty well. So I do have become like a believer in Daniel Jones. It's just, again, if you could have Pat Mahomes tearing his Achilles and I'd have pause. Like, I just don't like that injury. So we'll see what he looks like coming back from that thing. They say that they're expecting him to be ready for camp, but the big issue with Achilles injuries is never when you're ready. It's about what you look like for a year to a year and a half after the injury. A lot of the data says that, it takes a while to get back up to speed. And if you ever get back up to speed, like running backs, for instance, never get back up to speed off of Achilles. So we'll see. I hope he can figure it out and get back because he really had a resurgence this year. It's just, I hate that injury so much, Jake. I really hate it.
No, I'm with you. That's like patellars for me. So these next several, I'm going to kind of wrap them into a bundle because it's just generally different ways to ask between Richardson, Jones, Leonard, outside guys like Malik Willis. Like, what does the Colts quarterback situation look like next year? And this is coming from guys like Daniel J. Snyder McMullen, Nick Miguel, BC, Bo Connor. Basically, is Malik Willis a viable option? Is Philip Rivers done? Richardson, does he factor in at all? So Rivers already basically said himself, like, he's done. Like, he's not going to have another comeback in him. Plus, this was kind of all possible at this point because his high school season was done, which may not seem important, but, like, that was super important to him when he left the NFL initially, was to go coach in Fairhope at his son's school. So early in the Colts season, Rivers will be supposed to be on the sidelines doing high school ball. Richardson, I'm not confident that Richardson will be back. I don't think it makes sense for him. I don't think it makes sense for the Colts. So for me, whether it's a trade for some day 3 pick or whatever happens, I just don't see it happening. I don't see something like Malik Willis happening because he's going to make a lot of money. And if the Colts expect Daniel Jones to be back participating for them for the full year, you obviously can't spend that type of money. So that's kind of where I'm at with all that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Malik Willis could be interesting if they do make those changes, that general manager and head coach, and just want to go a completely different direction with this thing. But if those two are brought back, it's probably going to be Daniel Jones, or I don't know where they would pivot if the Vikings come in here and give a big offer to Jones. I don't know where you pivot from there, because the free agent quarterback class is a disaster outside of Willis and Jones.
Yeah.
There's nothing there to work with. So yeah, we'll see what they do. I think it will be Jones. We'll see if they get into a bidding war. But yeah, I think it'll be Jones, freshly off Achilles injury, being the starting quarterback next year.
Yikes. Yeah, because like even the trade market, you're like, do you want Kyler Murray or Tua? Or it's like, no, you don't.
No, and then when you talk about like the Mac Joneses, the Davis Mills, Tyson Bagents, like the best backups in football, why would those teams trade them when they're playoff? We just saw for the 49ers and the Texans, right? The only reason they're going to the playoffs is because those quarterbacks were good enough as backups to win some games. So unless you're giving up a pretty high pick, why would they trade those guys, right? Because they're valued to getting wins. So yeah, you're talking Kyler and Tua, and even at a discount, I wouldn't want to take any contract with those guys right now.
Please, no, thank you. All right, so up next, you guys had a lot of questions about the offseason, which you know us, we're offseason nerds. This time next week, it is the offseason, so let's embrace it. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge, but with PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and PrizePicks lets you stay in control. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on PrizePicks was quick and simple. The app's super easy to navigate. It's made watching games more engaging, especially when you're following individual player performance when someone's on a heater. Like maybe you benefited from Bijan Robinson's big Monday Night Football performance. I think a lot of people did. The new early payout feature is also a game changer. If a player starts hot, you can cash out before the game even ends. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, welcome back, Colts everydayers. We are talking now off-season moves. We just discussed Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen's future first, went on to the quarterback situation and what that might look like next year. But now we're looking at kind of the rest of the roster and how things might look. Now, Zach, this one's kind of just general and overarching again, but I do have some specifics to take away from it. Philip Schatz asks, did we learn anything of value about the future of the Indianapolis Colts this year? And I think we did. Like, even if everything stays intact on top, there are some expensive players that almost certainly will not be back. I would have to think, at least not at their figures. And you and Ben Boris talked about it yesterday on the show. There's guys like Michael Pittman Jr., Kenny Moore, that just don't necessarily make sense at their contract figures. You have free agents like Braden Smith. I think now you've got Jalen Travis in there, and you've seen what it looks like. Kwity Paye. Like, I just think you've kind of got there were some players with big question marks, and I think we've got some of those answers by now.
I wouldn't hold my breath on the Colts cutting ties with someone. I said this to Ben yesterday when it comes to like the Pittmans and the Kennys and the Zaire Franklins. If Ballard is still in charge of this thing, I wouldn't hold my breath on those moves coming. But when you say
would
like
you restructure though, like, do you think he'd be more likely to restructure? You still owe him that money then.
You still owe him the money. You just owe it to him at a future date. So I'm not going to want to push it to the future when we need to rebuild probably in the future. So,
it's Ballard we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. That's again, another issue with bringing it back for year 10. We're bringing everything back full circle here. But in terms of like big picture, did I learn anything about the Colts? I don't know if this is anything new, but man, Chris Ballard cannot buy an edge rusher draft pick to save his life, man. He just like Leatu Latu is easily his best one for sure. And he's fine. Like, he's fine. Like, I think he can make a good jump next year. Outside of that, man, he has whiffed so hard at edge rusher over and over. Like, JT Tuimoloau, I don't want to say it's over for him, but not a good rookie year at all. Like, just not a good rookie year from him. Kwity Paye has amounted to just not it this year. Tyquan Lewis, really rough season. the Ebucom thing, disaster from start, and we all knew that was going to be, everyone except for Chris Ballard. So maybe we didn't learn that, but like maybe we just got that opinion solidified a little bit more. Like, gosh, man, the edge rushing room is just the disaster that we all kind of feared it would be. In terms of learning big picture stuff, I mean, on the other side, I guess they can always find offensive linemen. Somehow they always felt Jalen Travis looked really good. Gonzalez and Bordellini played some good football this year, so I guess they can somehow always find offensive linemen, but that defensive lineman, no, we didn't learn anything new. We just solidified our opinion that, like, Chris, man, you got to let someone else draft these defensive ends.
Yeah, I would also say at this point, O-line, D-line, quarterback is like the only thing that matters. Like when you look at when the Colts are at their best, that
1 for 3.
Yeah, that is the only thing that matters for this Colts team going forward. This next one from Nick Miguel. If Chris Ballard isn't fired, do you think he'll be just as aggressive this year in the offseason to save his job again? I see him being back, and I think he's going to do some interesting things, whether it's cutting players or signing talent as a desperation attempt to stay here past next year. I don't know. I don't think there's definitely not the money available this coming off season that there was this last one. You don't have a first round pick. So like he doesn't have the resources to be as aggressive as he was last year. So that's kind of what I touched on at the top of the show is like, if you do bring him back, what do you sell people on? That like the guys who were injured and like the expensive veterans who maybe had down years, they're going to suddenly like turn it around next year, another year older and coming off of being banged up.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't stopped them in the past though from
Right.
bringing him back. What did you sell them on after 2022? What did you sell them on after 2024? You know, so
Yeah.
that doesn't stop them in the past. But yeah, like I don't know, man. I don't think he's going to be aggressive. They don't have the money. Like, and you can always say, "Oh, restructure and push everything to the future." It's like that'd be the worst thing. Don't do that. Don't push anything else to the future. So I don't think they can be as aggressive this offseason unless they make the moves that Ballard has never made, which is cutting a Michael Pittman Jr., which I don't think he would ever do that. It's just, what evidence do I have of him doing something like that? He would even cut Ebucom to save, what, $7-8 million? You think he's going to cut Michael Pittman Jr., his favorite player, like one of his favorite players ever? He saves $24 million with that, though. But I don't think he would do it. So, yeah, I don't know. Chris Ballard frustrates me, man. I don't think he would make the move that would be necessary there. They could find a way to push some money around. Don't re-sign Nick Cross could be part of it, and that's how you can save some money. Don't sign Alec Pierce, and that's how you can save some money.
Those are awful ideas, though.
Yeah, but like to go get your Trey Hendrickson, I guess. Right. But like still, like I don't know.
Which I feel like honestly, at this point is when he would go get Trey Hendrickson, who missed so much of the year due to like a hip injury or whatever. You know, like finally he's here in Indy after he missed most of last year. Yeah, but no, I mean that it's a prime example of why they just need some new direction in there. This next one from Bo Connor: how big of a priority has Alec Pierce become this offseason, and how much has he increased his value? Is he actually a franchise tag candidate? And I kind of like franchise tag. I mean, that's average of the top 5 receivers in the NFL, so that's not something that every team is going to want to pay, but it depends on what their plan is. Like if they legitimately do have in their minds that they could move on from Pittman and accelerate Pierce up into the, you know, broaden his role a little bit, then maybe. And I mean, 2 years in a row leading the league in yards per reception, I could see them taking that route. But like the transition tag is a thing that teams don't use enough. I don't understand why. I would do the transition tag on Pierce for sure.
Yeah, it still would be very expensive to do the transition tag, but it's a little bit more
top
feasible.
10, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, they definitely hurt themselves not extending him early. Now, part of this, I don't think Pierce wanted to be extended early because he believed in himself. But still, you think like after his last year, right? Like say you extend him around the same time you extend Bernhard Raimann, you can maybe get him for $16, $17, $18 million a year. Now, I think it's probably in the 20 plus, like 22 plus $1 million per year kind of range. And he's been playing some great football. So Yeah, they lost out some value not extending him early, and again, part of that's it takes two to tango, and who knows how maybe Pierce's side knew that he was going to have a great season, but yeah, they lost a lot of value not extending him early, and I don't know if I'd franchise tag him because that is a ton of money, and again, if you're not going to cut Michael Pittman Jr., you don't really have that money to play with, but maybe a transition could work under some circumstances as well, Jake.
No, I mean, as much as the Colts need to do everything they can to lock up Pierce, don't you just see a team with a good quarterback missing a vertical threat that's going to be too enticing? That just makes too much sense.
If you think so, the Titans have around $100 million in cap space this offseason. What's stopping them from like a 2-year, like $60 million contract? Because who cares? Like, they don't, like, they have so much money. Like,
and selling Pierce on Cam Ward is doable, I think.
Yeah. So I think it could be one of those situations where a team's looking at it as like, hey, this is a 25, 26-year-old receiver. We're going to overpay like crazy for him, but just getting him in here for a quarterback with cap space that we can't use all of it this offseason, that's more doable. Where a team like the Colts, like, they can't match a deal like that because they just don't have the money available to do that. So yeah, it's tough. It's kind of the situation you're stuck in when you have a lot of these big contracts that aren't really playing at the level that you need them to play at, and then you're not cutting them to make that space. Because again, I don't expect Ballard to ever do that.
Yeah, let's cap the day at that, because there's some good ones here that are going to take some time that I don't want to dive into quite yet. But this was a great round of Q&A today.
Yeah, we only got through like a fraction of the overall questions. So we want to thank you guys for them, of course. And we'll make sure to try to get to some more. Might do an extra episode to get you a little bit more out there. But thanks again, as always, guys, for tuning in to today's Locked On Colts. Tomorrow, we'll be diving into the season finale against the Houston Texans and what that looks like for Riley Leonard. Make sure you guys subscribe and follow Locked On Colts, where you get all the latest episodes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks too, all on socials. And if you never want to miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Colts ad-free, plus members only Discord access and more. Head to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join the club. And for all of you guys on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your next listen is the Locked On NFL podcast. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the Daily Show, as well as Locked On Colts Squad Show along Derek and Alan Pinkett.